Yeah! 1,667 steps accomplished. It's ridiculous. While I'm ready to die. You were born right here. Wow.
Before we get into details about what we'll do today, let's briefly recap what we did yesterday. We explored Chuanpu and Tempu Gorge, then we crossed the river to get to Fuling Gorge, where we visited the Monkey King before finally arriving at the Red Rock Gorge. It was an amazing trip, and we got to see some beautiful mountains while traveling on the lake. Today though, at Yuntai Mountain, not only will we continue seeing some breathtaking sceneries, but also have the opportunity to learn more about this ancient culture. Join me as we visit some families who live within Yuntai National Park. First, we'll head to Juyu Peak, where the famous poet Wang Wei rested on one of his journeys into the big city. Then, we'll head to Baijiayan, where we'll learn more about the 7 wise men and get to see the bamboo forest, and finally, we'll visit a traditional village where we'll meet the Li family.
Behind me is Juyu Peak, the highest peak in Yuntai Mountain. It's around 4,000 feet above sea level, and from here all the way to the top are only stairs. But let me tell you what, it's completely worth it. I'll meet you at the top.
Juyu Peak is around 30 minutes by bus, or 30 kilometers or around 18 miles away from the main gate. It's also good to know that Juyu Peak is the tallest of all peaks in Yuntai Mountain, and I'm sure it's a sight that you'll never forget. From top to bottom, you won't find any elevators or cable cars. They try very hard to protect the surrounding environment. Now that's a good thing, but climbing these stairs are definitely a challenge.
Now I was told there's around 1,667 steps from here all the way to the top.
Considering how hard it is to get to the top, I suggest making sure you rest well before you start your climb, especially if you decide going during the Chongyong Festival. This festival happens every year on the 9th day of the 9th month of the Chinese lunar calendar. And for this festival, people love to climb mountains because it represents giving their elders good fortune. So you'll often find families hiking up together for the holiday. Another custom you'll often find on Juyu Peak is where people will pin a plant called Juyu on their clothing. This custom started a long time ago. It happened when a famous poet Wang Wei came past here one day while he was writing one of his most well-known poems. He too had the plant Juyu pinned to his clothes.
At the top of the mountain, he wrote his most well-known work of all time. And this poem was all about the feeling he had about his mother and his little brother in his hometown. Now from that day on, he started a really good tradition of the Chinese people climbing this mountain at least once a year. You see that plant right there protruding out of the bush, long and skinny, and has those sporadic leaves at the top? This plant's actually called Juyu, and this is what the mountain was called after. Now I'll tell you more about it when we reach the top of the mountain. I'll see you there.
The Juyu plant grows in southern China, which means not everyone will be able to follow this tradition during Chongyong Festival. But the one thing that is used all throughout China is that famous poem he wrote, and is now used in most primary school textbooks. It's not an easy task to walk up all these stairs, but the air is crisp and the mountains are covered with trees protecting you from the sun, and these trees are thousands of years old. Now for those who are wanting a great view, a quick tip is to get up early in the morning because the best views are right during sunrise. But be careful, every day around 9 o'clock, a heavy fog will come in and it's very hard to see where you're walking.
These are my friends. I just met them 2 seconds ago, but we're very, very close. Ni hao ma. Ni hao. Ni hao. Ni hao. Ni hao. Nice to meet you. Say hi, everybody. Hi.
No matter when you start climbing, you'll always find people along the path. It seems that Chinese people, especially the elders, live a very healthy lifestyle. You'll see them playing Tai Chi or ping pong or even games like Chinese chess.
Ni hao.
And in times like this, you'll see them climbing very high mountains.
Now what you'll find is that I'm not that old, right? But I've seen people in their 70s and their 80s. They're climbing up here and they're smiling and they're singing and they're having a great time. Not a bead of sweat on their forehead. They're in such great shape, it's ridiculous. While I'm ready to die.
Hiking mountains is all about how you conserve your energy. Now, unless you're incredibly fit, you want to take a break every so often on your way up to the top.
So what was your first experience when you started coming to the mountain at the base?
The base?
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to be so tall.
And now you're at quarter way up?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Good exercise.
Isn't it, right? You don't need a gym, you don't need a treadmill, just come here once a day, you'll be fantastic.
Sure.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
I see you at the top?
All right.
Okay.
See you then.
We're almost at the top of the mountain, but I just want to take a moment and show you something. Now, if you recall, at the base of the mountain, I showed you a plant called juyu. And on my left here, we have a whole garden filled with juyu. And as you can tell, there's a fence protecting it. Some might say, why would you need to protect this plant? Well, actually, there's two reasons. One, the climate's beginning to change and the plant's becoming more scarce. And the second reason is there's a local tradition. This tradition is to break one of the branches off the juyu, pin it on your clothes, and it would represent the bond you have within your family members.
Now, juyu is a plant that's all across the southern China. Between June to August, the flowers come out at full blossom, and every October, the fruit will be at its ripest. The fruit that grows on these trees are round and red, but the best thing about them isn't the taste. It's the fact that the doctors say it's good for other problems. For example, headaches, tendinitis, even exhaustion. In ancient times, though, they would also consider this fruit able to exorcise evil spirits. Seems like a bag of this stuff wouldn't be a bad idea, huh?
These are the last stairs leading to the Xuandi Temple. Now, in my experience, the last stairs are always the difficult, but it's definitely worth it. Yeah! 1,667 steps accomplished. Got them done. Whew! Oh my gosh, smell that air. It's amazing. So clean, so fresh. And there's this nice, the temperature is just very, very cool. It's incredible, incredible. Now, you may not be able to tell, but there's a fog out in the distance. But from here, the mountains just keep on going and going and going, and it's an absolutely breathtaking view.
At the very top, there's a temple, but this is no ordinary temple. China has many religions, and Taoism is just one of them. It's very unique as they believe every person can be so-called upgraded until they become immortal after some complex practices. Taoism is strongly practiced throughout this area, and the most famous Taoist in these parts was a man named Juyu. Now, Juyu was a prince of a Yellow River area, and he did not care about glory or wealth. All he wanted was to become immortal. He got rid of all evil in his mind and did nothing but good things, like feeding wild animals and taking care of poor people. He also only ate grass roots and bark. Now, this wasn't easy for him, but luckily he had a preacher who taught him everything about Taoism, and soon he became a great Taoist believer. If you're interested to learn more about this man, then head up to the top of Juyu Peak, where you'll see Juyu Hall, where you'll find a lot more information about his life and Taoism.
The majority of Taoist temples will always have a drum and a bell at the entrance of the temple. Now, the drum's always on the left side of the temple, and the bell is always on the right side of the temple. Now, they only get to use these two during special holidays, and unfortunately, today's not one of them. This temple was built in the Tang Dynasty for the Taoist god Zhen Wu. Now, at that time, it was very difficult for them to go ahead and bring the stones up the mountain. Horses and donkeys couldn't make it. So you know what they used instead? They used goats. So this temple was very, very small. But every dynasty after that, they tried to help out and make it a little bigger and bigger. In 2005, they were finally able to bring helicopters in and build what we see now. Now, what you're hearing is the monk hitting the bell every time someone makes a prayer. And that indicates a God hearing you. It's a very beautiful thing.
During the Ming Dynasty, Emperor Zhu Yunzheng idolized Juyu so much that he decided to build two temples specifically for him. One of which is located at Yuntai Mountain, and the other is located here at this very spot, at Juyu Peak. Many travel from the farthest parts of China to reach these temples to pray in hopes they are heard and answered.
This temple here was built for the goddess Bisha, which means the goddess of green clouds. Now people would come here and pray of hopes to have a baby. Now I don't want to get too close, I'm not ready for that. Across the temple from Bisha is Jiao Gongming. Now Jiao Gongming is god for money. So obviously I'm in here hoping for the best. What we have here are a lot of red wooden squares. And in Chinese, it's called Chifuka. And that means prayer cards. And what they do is they buy it from one of the monks here, and they go ahead and they write their prayers and they hang it up here to hope the prayers would come true. And you can see throughout the entire temple, there's millions and millions of them.
The red piece of wood have many different wishes on them, some for good health, some for love, some even for good marks on their exam. Here they believe the immortals have power, kindness, and have achieved greatness, which is why people pray to them. Aside from Taoism, this mountain was a place for outsiders to escape society. Monks, artists, authors, even dismissed emperors would all come here for peace and safety. This is due to the fact that the mountain range is very near the ancient political center, so people didn't have to travel far. The mountain here at Baijiayan is called Henan Mountain, and the waterfall is Tianmen Waterfall. Now this stunning waterfall is 180 meters high. Now in comparison with other scenic spots, this place is quite small. However, it's still very well known due to the 7 wise men.
When the 7 humble men used to live here around 200 AD, this entire area was covered with bamboo. But since then, this climate has changed quite drastically, and a lot of the bamboo died off. So what you see here, it has been newly planted to restore this area back to its former glory.
The 7 wise men were Jikang, Ranji, Shantao, Xiangqiu, Liu Ning, Wang Rong, and Ran Xian. They graced this area from 240 AD to 249 AD, and they loved being in the bamboo forest. Now there's an age gap between them all, but they all practice the same faith.
This tablet here was built in memory of Ji Khan, the most famous out of the 7 men. And on this tablet says Jishan, which is the name of this mountain.
We'll cross over this small valley where we can see a better look at this ancient pagoda.
This pathway leads all the way up to the pagoda, but I want to show you something really interesting. On the left side of the pagoda is a beautiful waterfall called Tianmen Waterfall. Now this waterfall in Chinese stands for the gates of heaven. And from here, which is quite a distance, you can hear the thundering sound of the water beating against the rocks below. It's very, very impressive.
Xianyu is what Chinese people call girls who treat their parents very well. It comes from filial piety. Now in traditional Chinese family, filial piety is rigidly observed. Children who are kind to their parents will be honored in many ways. You could get a stone table or maybe even a pagoda. Each gift has a story behind it, and that is no different when we talk about Xianyu Pagoda.
So the story goes, the reason this pagoda was built was to honor a little girl, age of 15 years old. Now this little girl, her mother was sick, so she went to a local monk and asked what she could do. And the monk told her, if you sacrifice yourself, the remainder years will transfer from you to your mother. So what she did, she jumped off the cliff, all for the love of her mother.
In China, you can find thousands of stories like this one, all with the same motto, be good to your seniors and believe in Taoism. Now all the rules might seem a bit too much, but that is what the foundation of Chinese culture is built on. At the north of Yuntai Mountain, there's a village called Yidoshui, and this place has a history over 300 years. Now there isn't anything more than restaurants and hotels here, but the most famous restaurant belongs to the Li and Jia family. I've heard that they have some amazing secret recipes. Let's check out the restaurant.
This might be a restaurant. Yeah, let's see if there's anyone inside. 你好. Ni hao. Come on, let's take a look. Ni hao. I don't think anyone's here. Ni hao. Ni hao. 我吃饭可以吗？
可以，
可以。我可以看看吗？
可以，你
可以
可以看看啊，
OK，
你可以
谢谢
随便
你
看看啊，
谢谢
好，好，没事，
谢谢
你看吧，随便看看吧。
谢谢。
好的。
I asked her if we can find anything to eat, and she said yes, there's no problem. And also, I asked permission if we can take a look around, and she says go right ahead. So let's take a look and see what we can find.
The Lee family owns half of this courtyard, and by looking at the materials used to build this house, it seems like they've been here for hundreds of years.
This village was built 170 years ago by the Lee family. And what they did is they took these stones right out of the mountain, and they brought it down here, and they built this entire village. And this particular villa has 34 rooms, which is quite impressive. And I wish you could, if you feel these stones, they're very, very cool to the touch. It's incredible how they can keep the temperature in even though it's quite hot outside.
This beautiful girl is the daughter of the Lee family. She's 17 years old. She studies in town, but when she has time off, she'll come back and help out with the restaurant.
So how long have you been living here?
All my life.
All your life?
是 yes.
Wow. So where were you born?
I'm born here.
Here?
Really here. Yeah.
In this room? You were born here in this room?
Yes.
That's incredible. Is it okay if I take a look?
Okay. Okay.
谢谢你. Wow. It's very beautiful. Hi. So where were you born exactly in this room? Where were you born?
It's here.
You were born right here.
Yes.
Wow. Was there a khan here?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly. It's actually quite difficult, but I'm going to give it a try. A khan is a type of bed that actually has a pipe leading outside. And what they do is they have a fire outside, and the heat will travel through the pipe, go underneath the bed, and warm up the bed during birth. That's very, very incredible. Wow. Something else, right? Don't usually see that back at home.
In order to please the tourists, the Lee family has rearranged their house. The downstairs area is now the restaurant, and while upstairs is the hotel.
Oh, wow. Look at that. So this must be what they were talking about. Downstairs, they were telling me it's only 30 RMB to spend the night here. Plus, you get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's a deal. You got double bed for couples, single bed if you're alone. Now, don't worry, even though there's no air conditioning in these villas. Because it's built out of stone, the climate's actually quite low, so it's quite comfortable. Now, on the other hand, it could get a little chilly at night, so don't forget to bring a jacket. And bringing a book or a magazine, unnecessary. The walls are covered with newspaper. There's plenty to read here. Huh. Coupon for McDonald's. I'm gonna ask her if I can help her cook a little bit. 你好，我可以帮妈妈
别了，没有，不用，不
一点
用。
一点。
那你帮我提水去吧。
Okay, she's asking me if I can get the water from the well. Is this okay?
哎，这个。好。
谢谢你。
I was told to follow the brick road, which leads to the well. This has been the way the Chinese have been getting their water for hundreds of years.
Now, this road here leads to the well that I'm going to go get the water from. But also, it may not look like it, but this road's actually the official road to Shenxi province. Now, surprisingly, even though this road is so small, Shenxi province is 2,000 miles away. These rocks to my right were built from generation to generation. Surprisingly, each generation that built them weren't by men. They were built by women. The men would leave the village and go work and earn money coming back. So every rock here was built by the daughters of the village. On my left here, you can see there's a bunch of walls. Now what they did here is that every village member would build these walls during the summer, spring, and fall. And during the winter, they'd harvest the crop. And all this is corn. Now, since we're out here in the village, everything here is organic. They don't use any chemicals whatsoever. And you may say, oh, organic, there really isn't a difference. But I tell you, when you taste these vegetables here, there's a huge difference in the ones bought in the store. Let's go. Oh, here's the well. Okay. This well is called Shui, which stands for large bucket of water. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Now, as they were building the village, they were walking around and they found this area that steam was just erupting out of the ground. They wanted to know what was going on underneath. So they started digging and they found a water reservoir. Now, what's really interesting about this well is that no matter how dry the seasons are or how wet it can be, the water level content always stays the same. So there's a technique getting the water into the bucket. What you do is you swing the bucket back and forth and let the rope drop, and it gets water on both sides. Now you want to remind yourself not to fill the bucket completely because it'll be way too heavy to bring up. And just pour it in the other bucket. Save a little bit for yourself. That is delicious. There's actually a little sweet taste to it. Wonderful. So my roommate's engaged to a local farmer in Weilin, and she came over a few days ago, and it was the first time I ever met her, and she all of a sudden says, "Oh, you want to arm wrestle?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" She's quite petite, and we started arm wrestling, and I kid you not, I'm not the strongest guy, but I was surprised that I had to struggle a little bit with her, and I couldn't understand why. And now, after doing this, I realized this is where they get all their strength from. It's actually quite strenuous on the shoulders and the arms. And we've only walked, like, let's say 15 minutes so far, so they're very, very strong. You gotta give them credit. It's definitely not the easiest way to get through the door. Wakwelala! Wakwelala! Oh, not very much water left. Ah, shishini. Whew. Honestly, it may look easy, but it really isn't. And just from such a small task like this really gives you insight on how difficult a daily life. Oh, shishini, shishini. It gives you insight on the daily life of an actual farmer. And honestly, this is a very small task compared to what they have to do daily. So I have a lot of respect for them.
Great, looks like they haven't finished cooking yet. I want to help out with the cooking, but I want to find a job that's more involved in preparing the dishes. Well, I got my wish. We're making noodles and Chinese bread.
Okay, so we're kneading it with the palms of our hands. And, oh, okay, so. It's not as easy as it looks. And when he comes over, bend it in, and then knead it, and then bring it in.
Wow, this isn't easy at all. I definitely don't have the skills for this. It seems like it would take a long time to master like Mrs. Lee. People in Yi live a very simple life, with plenty of time to enjoy everything they have that their ancestors left for them. Ah, it's dinner time. I smell something really nice.
We all look like we have the same.
Everyone here is very hospitable. Even the neighbors have welcomed me with open arms. The banquet is still going on, but it's time to say goodbye to Yuntai Mountain. This adventure has been amazing. We've got to see and learn so much in just 2 days. I'll never forget the Red Rock Gorge and the stunning waterfalls, learning how to make noodles, or meeting Mr. Du, the Monkey King. All in all, Yuntai Mountain is a destination that will stay with me till the end of time.